It's gonna take forever, innit? I knew I shouldn't have done this video. What am I doing in my spare time, seriously? Right, so the other day, yeah, I was on my lunch break and I was scrolling through Instagram, like that, and I saw that Harm's Way were playing, one of my favourite bands. You know that band that they sort of do like that hardcore thing and they sort of like mosh about and that, and the singer's got this massive chest. You know that really famous picture of the singer where he's like, looks like Hulk and he's X'd up his hands and got a balaclava on. They sort of sound like really, really heavy power violence, sort of like new metal, very, very heavy hardcore, sometimes got discords in there. Anyway, I'm getting beyond the point. Harm's Way are playing in Berlin, and my mate's band, my mate Dan, hashtag Dan from Renounced, is the singer in Renounced, and they're also supporting Harm's Way on that gig. So I texted him and I said, do you reckon I could get on the cheeky guest list, mate? Is that all right? And he texted me back and he said it was fine. So hopefully I'm going to be going to the show. And whilst I was scrolling through, I saw that there was another band that were playing after Renounced. So Renounced on first, then there's a band in between Harm's Way and Renounced. This band is called Sanction, and I really love their logo, and I could tell instantly that they're going to be one of these 90s hardcore inspired bands. Well, 90s metalcore, if you want to call it that. This sort of like metal and hardcore thing that was happening in the 90s. Just from the logo, I could see instantly this band was going to be awesome, but just to make sure, I went onto Spotify, turned all my speakers on, and just turned it up super, super loud so I could check out this band and make sure that I could listen to it in a really, really good environment.
You've got to learn to trust me.
I played the first song, the most played song or whatever, and it was by far my favorite, which I'll talk about later, but I was completely blown away by this band. And I know this isn't the newest album or whatever, it's not like the newest thing to come out recently, but I really want to do a video about it because I don't normally listen to hardcore. Like, I don't listen to it as much as I used to, and this band really blew me away, so thought I'd do a video about it. Is that all right? So this album is called The Infringement of God's Plan, and it's a 7-track album. It's quite a short one, and a lot of the tracks are outros, intros, or sort of like in between songs where they mess around with lots of voice manipulation. So yeah, this band are from New York, 90s inspired metalcore band, and I'm really, really into it. The Infringement of God's Plan is one of those albums that I've had on constantly, and I want to talk about it a little bit. So the first song is called Enter, open brackets, in 5 fractions. This is more of like an intro, and what I can say about this intro is it really reminds me of the first track off of the self-titled Slipknot album. You know that one where it's like, you know that one? Well, it sounded like really like that because it has like manipulation of voice, it has loads of noisescapes, and it's just sounding like basically like an intro. The difference is that on the self-titled Slipknot album, that one, it sort of like trails out and then goes into the song. It has like a merging section in between the end of the song and the start of the first song on that album. But with this one, it sort of just cuts off and then the start of the next song just starts abruptly. I've listened to this album loads and loads of times, right? And I do end up skipping the first track quite a lot, this intro thing, because it doesn't really blend in well with the first track, so I'm always ending up skipping it. In fact, I made a playlist of this album and I took out the first track. Is that bad? Probably bad in it. I probably shouldn't say that. Cut that out. But like I said, I don't really listen to it that much. I just skip it and go on to the first track because it's a banger. So the first track, The Prophet Who Saw Fire, right? It goes straight into it, like I said, after this weird intro. Goes straight in with the first riff, which does continue to go throughout the track. It's definitely like the meat of the track, if you want to say it like that, or the carrots or the tofu if you're vegan. It's definitely like the main part of the track, but at the 1 minute 20 point, I think it is. I wrote it down, one sec. Yeah, at the 1 minute 20 mark, we're gifted with our first like real heavy breakdown, which was the first point where on this album you're really set into the place and set into the mood of that 90s metalcore sort of thing. It definitely just hits you straight away, but it doesn't last for too long. It definitely dips out really quick. I like the way they're teasing you a little bit. They've got this sort of like metalcore thing going on. It's not metal, it's not hardcore, it's just like really nicely spliced together. The recording is not amazing. It's definitely like very edgy and very dirty, but I got a feeling that they're doing this on purpose to get that sort of 90s sound. But the first track, fire. Absolutely amazing. Did I just say fire? I'm 31 years old. The second track, 631, is probably one of the best songs on the album. Definitely one of the ones that I listen to the most because it's got this section in the middle of it where it's got like this not a breakdown, but it's got like a riff where it's a little bit slower, a little bit more chuggy, and the vocals are layered quite a lot. And this reminded me of like that effect that a lot of new metal bands used back in the day, where it made their voice sound super distant, like in the background, like they're shouting, really raw recorded, and then they got the cleaner vocal, which is up front. It's still shouting, but it just recorded cleaner. And I really like that effect. I haven't heard it in years, and I thought it really sit well with the track, so I was pretty impressed with that one. You know, I was talking about at the start of the video, the first track that I ever listened to. This is it. It's the third track on the album. It's called Fixated on a Figure. And the reason I love this track so much is because it really reminds me of like one of my favorite bands of all time, which is Snub, who later went on to be You've Been Lied To and many, many other bands. But Snub were around in the 90s, and I remember listening to them at school. They were like, my best mate's uncle played guitar in them, and it was like our local band in our area. And it was just this super, super heavy sound and a lot of chugs and a lot of 90s metalcore influence from bands like Disembodied and Turmoil and stuff like that. So all of my mates are super into Snub. I remember we used to do covers in all the bands I was in. Yeah, like Snub is a huge, huge part of my life. So when I put on this album, the first song that I played was Fixated on a Figure, and it reminded me of Snub. I was like, you can definitely hear like the influences of that 90s metalcore thing going in there. A lot of Disembodied influence, obviously, with like those super heavy discords and chugs. And a lot of the bass is like super distorted, and the vocals are very, very layered. So you've got like this sort of deep growl at the front, and then you've got these high shrieks, which are a little less in the forefront. They're definitely sitting in the background. Fixated on a Figure is by far my favorite track on this album.
Interesting opinions.
The frontman, David, who I was like reading his lyrics on Genius today. I was going on genius.com, as I always do, to find out lyrics and bands, that, or what is it, darklyrics.com or whatever. I was reading on Genius today the lyrics to this song Untitled, because I could hear a few words like popping through when I was listening to it, and I really wanted to know what it was when the breakdown came in. So I'm going to read them to you. One sec, get my laptop. The wilt of man is not the wilt that is mine. Through the tide, under the skin, bleed me dry. Absolutely incredible lyrics. I really, really like the darkness of it. It's not like overly technical. It's not overly simplified like a lot of hardcore bands are. Sitting in there quite nice with the band. They're not too mystical or whatever. They definitely have some meaning to them, but it's not overly simple that it just is straight in your face. Like you can just figure it out straight away. You definitely have to go online and figure it out. You know what I mean? So the next track is actually the title track from the album, The Infringement of God's Plan. It's one of those tracks where the first riff, you can identify exactly where the influences are coming from. And it really, really reminds me of Norma Jean. I don't know if any of you have listened to this album or listened to this track like deeply enough to get that or whatever, but I would recommend going back to this song. So The Infringement of God's Plan by Sanction on their album, The Infringement of God's Plan. Go there, listen to it, and tell me if you get that as well. Like particularly this song, the first riff really reminds me of Norma Jean. Towards the end, they've got this little breakdown where it's chuggy and then it's got discords, and then it goes higher on the discords, which was something that Norma Jean would do a lot and Disembodied would do a lot. But just the way they're playing it and the way it's recorded really reminded me of Norma Jean, which was kind of cool because listening to Norma Jean tons when I was in school. So this song ends in like a really, really heavy breakdown, like I said, where it slows down and they go higher on the discords. And it definitely does sort of round up the album nicely and give like a really nice ending to it. A lot of hardcore bands or heavier bands tend to do this a lot with their albums, where they end on their heaviest song or whatever, on their heaviest breakdown. A lot of bands tend to do this live as well. It was kind of cool because it's only 7 tracks, and 2 of those tracks is outro and intro, so it does make sense to put one of those songs where you start with a really heavy riff and end on a really heavy breakdown. That does make sense. I do appreciate how this album is really nicely rounded up by that. The last song on this album is called Exit, open brackets, chord radius, close brackets. It's not really a song, it's more of an outro, and it's more of that noise manipulated vocal sort of thing going on there. All in all, this is an amazing album. Again, I do tend to skip the last track. So the first track and the last track, it does sort of like drag on for a little bit too long, the last one. It's got some acoustic guitars, which are really drony and sort of badly recorded. But again, I think that's on purpose. I'm really loving listening to this album. I keep on listening to it a lot, even though, like I said, I'm not listening to a lot of hardcore right now. I'm going to give it a solid 8.5 out of 10, I guess. We doing it out of 10? Yeah, whatever. 8.5 out of 10. It's a brilliant album. Really, really love it. And I'm going to keep on listening to it. Not too much though. I don't want to ruin it. Hope you enjoyed this little album review that I've done. A lot of people have been asking me to do this all the way through my little YouTube career. Can I say career? So if you do want to see this sort of stuff and you want to see more album reviews or whatever, comment down below what you want to see for album reviews. I'm going to try and do new stuff. I know this album isn't the newest one, whatever, but Yeah, I'm blabbering on. Anyway, I'm going to go eat some biscuits and drink a cup of tea. Thank you for watching this video. If you do like it, do I look like Freddie Mercury right now? If you do like this video, yeah, and you think it was good, there's a little button down there and you can press it. It looks like a thumb, right? If you do that, then my videos get recommended to other people, so please do that. If you also press the little bell, matey, there's a few options there. You can choose to get notifications and you will see my videos more often. So if you like my videos, press that like button, subscribe button, and you can also share it with your mates, all of your friends and your mates. All right, that is by far the most blabbering I've ever done in a video. Honestly now, right, I spent ages recording this video and ages editing it probably, even though I haven't done it yet, but I can already see that it's going to take ages to edit. So run the bloopers reel. Is that still in the shot? Still in the shot as well. How can I get this? What am I doing? What's that? What is that? 31? 631, yeah.
For the hero.
Right, and he X's up his hand. He X's up. Great. Booming. Amazing. The first track's great.
So.
It's still in the shot. He X's up his hands and wears a balaclava.
This is my wife.
Still in the shot.
You mean?
Frida's licking her bumhole next to me. That's my dog, not my wife. I can't leave that in. Is that out of the shot? That's out of the shot. That'll do. No one even cares. No one's going to watch the videos anyway. Alright, cool. See you in a bit. Bye.